welcome to the Watchful Citizen, sponsored by the Lancaster County Democrats. My name is Barbara Baier, and today I'm interviewing our guest, who is Tami Soper. And Tami Soper is probably a person many of you know. She's been very active in Lancaster County Democratic circles for a long time, and she is the aide to Senator Gwen Howard, a favorite among many. Welcome, Tami.
Thank you, Barb. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you from Lincoln? What's your educational background? Things like that.
Well, I was born in Lincoln and raised most of my life. I've lived in District 21. I have, in fact, my husband and I a couple of years ago just bought the house that my parents bought when I was 11, so I'm very familiar with the area that I live in. We're in the Highlands, so been in the district for a long time. My background is predominantly health and human services. For most of my life, I've worked in either public health agencies or in nonprofit organizations dealing with health and human services issues. So I've been a public servant for a very long time.
So this is something that our state legislature that you are running for is kind of missing these days. Is that understanding of health and human services, a huge need in our state. Tell us a little bit about what you know about the situation right now for Nebraska and foster care.
Well, I know that in the last year, the department has tried to work hard to address some of the concerns that were brought to light regarding the state of our foster care system. I think that it's interesting. We have some senators that are very motivated to want to make change there, but not many of them have a background and have had experience in health and human services to know where to begin to make those changes. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think that would be very important to moving health and human services forward is to look at accrediting that system. Mm-hmm. It's something that health and human services requires of many of the organizations that are contracted to provide services through them. And I do think it would be a way to help to change the structure of both our management, look at reevaluating our goals. Are we consistent with national standards? All of those sorts of things. I think it would go a long way to improving the services we provide.
So has foster care in Nebraska been criticized nationally? I mean, what are we one of those states that has a high placement rate and things like that?
We do. We have a high placement of children, a high rate of out-of-home placement for children. In fact, before this last year, we were one of the highest in the nation per capita. And in addition to having a high rate of placement, we also have a real slow rate of moving those children into permanency, getting them out of the system once they're in there. We are working to improve our adoption rates and move children to permanency sooner when there's a termination of parenthood, and we're looking at placing them in a permanent adoptive home. We're getting a little bit better at that over the last year, but we still are facing some challenges in terms of those children who our plan is to reunify them with families. We're not doing a very good job of expediting that process, getting the family's needs met, whatever those needs might be, and getting those children returned back to their home.
Do you believe that things like parenting classes, family supports would help in that area?
I think parenting classes and family supports would be very helpful. I also think that it might be helpful if we evaluated our caseloads and made sure that our case managers who are doing that work, the frontline staff, actually had the appropriate amount of time to give the attention they need to those cases. I think that we've heard from case managers and from families who've worked with the system that that's one of the challenges in moving forward in that system. In terms of parenting classes, I think parenting classes would be helpful, but I also think that we need to start earlier through our education system, providing comprehensive health education so that we stop having children who are becoming parents at such a young age. It is very challenging to parent someone when you're still a child yourself, and we know that that's the case with many of the children who end up in our health and human services system.
Very interesting. How does poverty factors and the ability for people to earn a sustainable living figure into these issues?
It makes a huge difference. For example, just recently we got some information about our program that puts people into the workforce, and for a parent who's a part of a program that is working full-time or working part-time, the Employment First program, that has a child, people I think are of the assumption that they're getting a lot of money from the government to help with all of their needs, but it's $239 a month that they get on top of their minimum wage job to help them make ends meet. And
that's all they get for child care?
Well, they get child care support, but it's
Okay.
very restrictive in terms of the hours and all of those sorts of things. You can only meet certain hours, certain types of providers, and unfortunately, one of the challenges that we're seeing is that they're not paying the rate that the providers would charge. For example, you and I, if we came in and we were self-paying for child care, the state doesn't reimburse at the same rate, so that makes it harder for the providers as well to fit those folks into their slot. So it's a really one of those processes where we really need to gut the whole system and reevaluate the way that we provide support to families. If we want our end goal to be these families truly moving towards self-sufficiency so that they don't end up back in the system, so that they don't end up continuing to need those services, then we really need to put supports in place to help them be successful on the front end, whether that's job training, whether that's getting them linked with the type of employment that can really sustain a family, as opposed to saying, okay, well, they've got a job and that's what matters regardless of what the quality of that job is. Because we know that there are jobs out there that you can work full-time, you can work it twice full-time and still not make enough money to be able to pay your rent and to buy school clothes for your children and pay your utilities.